Story 1. The man who stood in my driveway every night. I live at the very end of a long, dead-end road in a rural area. The kind of place where, if a car drives past your house after 11 p.m., you notice. My nearest neighbor is about a quarter-mile away through the trees. At night, it gets so dark out here that the sky doesn't glow orange from city lights like it does in suburbia. It just goes black. The only light outside my house is an old motion-activated floodlight above the garage. For as long as I've lived here, that light almost never came on at night, unless I pulled into the driveway or took the trash out too late. Then, around early spring, it started coming on by itself. At 3:15 a.m. almost every night. The first night it happened, I was half asleep, scrolling on my phone in bed, when I saw that flash of white light bleed through my curtains. The floodlight is stupidly bright, like a camera flash. I assumed a deer had wandered into the driveway. We get them all the time. I rolled over, ignored it, and went back to doom scrolling. The second night, it clicked on again. 3:15 a.m., same exact time. This time, my dog reacted. I have a 3-year-old German Shepherd mix named Kaya. She's protective, but not skittish. She loves watching the yard from the living room window, and she only growls at actual threats. Strangers at the door, coyotes too close to the property line, that kind of thing. When the light came on, Kaya was lying on the floor at the foot of my bed. Her head shot up. She stared at the bedroom door, ears fully perked, then let out this low, constant growl. I'd never heard that sound from her before. I got up, walked to the living room, and she refused to follow me. She just stood in the hallway, hackles raised, staring toward the front of the house. I peeked between the blinds. Nobody was there, at least not that I could see. The driveway was empty. The yard looked normal, but the light was on. I told myself it was probably a raccoon or a stray dog and went back to bed. The third night is when I started to worry. At 3:15 a.m., the floodlight clicked on again. This time, Kaya didn't growl. She refused to even look toward the front windows. She got up, came to my bed, and tried to push her head under my arm like she wanted to hide. Her entire body trembled. I could feel her heart pounding against my side. That's what made something in my brain say, "Okay, enough. Check." I got up, walked to the living room in the dark, and slowly pulled one side of the blinds down just enough to peek out. There was a man standing in my driveway. He wasn't moving. He wasn't looking around. He was just standing there, facing the house. He was right at the edge of where the light met the darkness. All I could see was his silhouette broad shoulders, maybe 6 feet tall, hands hanging limp by his sides. His head was tilted slightly upward, like he was looking right at the windows. At me. Every hair on my body stood on end. My first instinct was to duck, to drop the blinds and crawl out of the room. But I forced myself to keep looking for a few seconds longer. He didn't move, not even a twitch. No phone in his hand, no cigarette, nothing. Just standing. I backed away, heart hammering, trying to convince myself that this was just some drunk who took a wrong turn. A lost driver. Some guy whose GPS glitched, except there was no car, and no sound of one leaving. I watched from the dark hallway for what felt like 10 minutes. Eventually, the floodlight timed out and switched off, plunging everything outside into blackness. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went outside and checked the driveway. The gravel looked disturbed, but that could have been from my own truck. No clear footprints. Out of habit, I checked the small security camera above the garage, the cheap one I'd installed a year ago for package deliveries. The red light on the front was off. The camera was unplugged. From inside the garage, which is only accessible from inside the house. I live alone. I told myself there had to be some logical explanation. I'd unplugged it myself at some point, or the wire came loose. But I knew that wasn't true. I hadn't touched it in months. That day at work, I was useless. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be some notification from a neighbor or a cop, except I hadn't told anyone. I kept thinking about how still that man had been. It's one thing to have someone come to your front door and knock. It's another to have them just stand and watch, like they're studying you. The fourth night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the couch with the TV muted and Kaya sleeping uneasily at my feet. I kept the blinds closed, but left one side slightly tilted. At 3:13 a.m., 2 minutes earlier this time, the floodlight clicked on. Kaya bolted upright, slammed herself under the coffee table, and stared at the front of the house, whining. I slowly leaned forward and peeked out through the blinds. He was there again, closer than before. This time he was standing halfway up the driveway, near the small patch of dead grass under the tree. I still couldn't see his face, just the dark outline of a hoodie and jeans, and some kind of dark jacket. He was angled slightly, not fully facing the house, but his head was turned toward the window. I don't know how long I watched him. My eyes were burning, but I didn't dare blink. At some point, the light switched off again. I didn't see him move when it did, like he just blended into the darkness. On the sixth night, I caved and called the sheriff's non-emergency line. The deputy on the phone sounded tired but polite. He said he'd send a car to do a drive-by around that time. I gave a nervous laugh and said, "Yeah, watch nothing happen now that I called." Nothing did. Of course. That night, 3:15 came and went. No light, no shadow in the driveway. Kaya slept soundly for the first time all week. The deputy called me back around 3:40 a.m. and said the road looked clear, but they'd keep an eye on the area. I thanked him, apologized for the late call, and tried to convince myself that maybe the whole thing had been in my head. The seventh night proved it wasn't. I woke up without knowing why. The room was dark. My phone said 3:09 a.m. My heart was already pounding, like my body knew something before my brain did. Then the floodlight clicked on. Kaya whimpered and tried to crawl under the bed. This time, I didn't go to the living room. I didn't want to stand in front of the big exposed front windows. Instead, I crawled to the side window in my bedroom that has a view of the driveway and part of the porch. I lifted the edge of the curtain slowly. He wasn't in the driveway. He was at the bottom of my front steps. Close enough now that I could see the faint outline of his jaw, the slope of his shoulders, the shape of his shoes on the wood. He was staring up at the front door. Not moving. Not knocking. Just waiting. That's when something in me snapped. Fight finally beat flight. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. While it rang, I dared to look again. He had moved. He was halfway up the steps now. I dropped the curtain, gasped, and half crawled, half ran out of the bedroom into the hallway, putting myself between my room and the front door, knife shaking in my hand. The dispatcher picked up. I tried to keep my voice calm, but it came out cracked and breathless. "There's a man in my driveway," I said. "He's on my porch. This is the 7th night he's been here. I don't know what he wants, but my camera was unplugged and my dog..." While I was talking, something hit the front door. Not hard, not like a kick. More like a slow, deliberate weight pressing against it. I stopped breathing. The dispatcher said, "Sir, are you safe right now? Is he trying to get in?" The doorknob turned, very gently. I could hear the metal scrape as it twisted just enough to test the lock. That slow testing movement made me feel sicker than if he'd tried to kick the door down. "He's trying the lock," I whispered. "He's at my door right now. Units are on the way. Stay on the line. Do you have a weapon?" "Yes," I said, looking down at the kitchen knife in my hand that suddenly felt pathetically small. "Yeah, but I don't want to open the door." "Do not open the door," she said firmly. "Stay where you are." Can you move to a back room and lock yourself in? I thought about it, but moving away from the front door meant not knowing where he was, and that felt worse. He knows, I whispered without meaning to. He knows my schedule, the exact time, the camera, the dog. He's been planning this. Why hasn't he tried to break in yet? As if in response, the doorknob stopped moving. Silence. Then 3 soft knocks, not on the wood, on the glass pane beside it, like he was putting his forehead or palm there. Gentle, almost affectionate. "Sir?" the dispatcher asked. "What's happening now?" I couldn't answer. I was staring at the thin rectangle of frosted glass next to the door. A shadow passed over it, just a vague outline of a head and shoulders, distorted by the glass. Then, for the first time, he moved with intention. The shadow stepped away. I heard the soft sound of footsteps on the porch, moving across the wood, then fading down the stairs. The floodlight outside flickered once and shut off. About 6 minutes later, red and blue lights washed through my windows. 2 cruisers pulled into the driveway. I opened the door only when they asked me to, the knife still in my hand. They searched the property, the tree line, the ditches along the road. They didn't find anyone. One of the deputies suggested maybe it was a drunk, a homeless guy, someone mentally ill. Another deputy, older, quieter, walked around the house and checked all the windows. He came back with a strange look on his face. "You say this started about a week ago?" he asked. "Yeah." He pointed to my bedroom window. "You usually keep those curtains open at night?" "Sometimes," I said. "Why?" He nodded toward the security camera above the garage. "It's plugged in now," he said. But whoever unplugged it knew exactly which wire to pull. "You got any tools missing from your garage?" We checked. Nothing obvious. But there was something else. Behind the garage, where the floodlight didn't quite reach, the grass was worn down in an arc-shaped patch, like someone had been standing there a lot, like their feet had made a shallow trough in the dirt over time. The older deputy stared at it for a long moment. "Could be an animal," he said. But his tone said he didn't believe that. They left after taking a report. They said they'd patrol more often, and to call if anything else happened. I didn't sleep in my bedroom that night, or the next. I started crashing on the couch with all the lights on, knife and phone in arm's reach. For a week, nothing happened. The floodlight stayed off. Kaya calmed down. I started to feel stupid about the whole thing, paranoid. Maybe the guy moved on. Maybe the increased patrols scared him away. Then, one morning, just after sunrise, I stepped outside with my coffee and froze. Sitting neatly in the dead patch of grass near the driveway were 4 objects, placed in a careful little row. The batteries from my TV remote, the batteries from my air conditioner remote, the batteries from my old garage door opener, and a small, cheap digital watch. The watch was set to 3:15, and it wasn't ticking. Someone had been inside my house while I slept, testing what he could quietly disable, experimenting with what I wouldn't notice, learning how deep he could go before I woke up. I installed a full security system that same day. Motion sensors, window alarms, new deadbolts, additional cameras. I even considered moving, but for now, I'm still here. The floodlight doesn't come on at 3:15 a.m. anymore. At least, not that I've seen. But sometimes, around that time, Kaya will lift her head from where she's sleeping, stare down the hallway toward the front door, and let out that same low growl. Like someone is standing just outside, right at the edge of the motion sensor's range, carefully, patiently, learning how not to trigger it. Story 2. The face behind the cracked mirror. I moved into my new apartment last spring, right after a messy breakup. I didn't care about how perfect the place was. I just needed a fresh start. Somewhere cheap, quiet, and private. This building checked all 3 boxes. The apartment wasn't perfect. but I told myself the flaws were character. The bathroom mirror, for example, had a long vertical crack running from the top right corner down toward the center. It looked like somebody had slammed a cabinet door into it years ago. My landlord promised to replace it next week, but from what the neighbors told me, his next week usually meant never. Still, I didn't mind the crack, not at first. Then I started noticing things. The distortion. Every night when I brushed my teeth, I'd catch these subtle warps in my reflection. The crack bent the image just slightly, stretching parts of my face while compressing others. It wasn't dramatic, just enough to make me stare longer than I meant to. But as the weeks went by, the distortion grew. Stranger. It stopped affecting my reflection and started affecting the background behind me. Sometimes, just for a second, the shower curtain behind me looked like it was bulging inward. Sometimes, I thought I saw something tall and dark standing behind it. And once, I swear to God, I blinked, and in the fraction of a second, my eyes were closed. The shower curtain looked open. I would immediately turn around, pull it aside, check everything. All was empty. I blamed lack of sleep, stress, paranoia, everything but the mirror. Until the night I woke up thirsty around 2 a.m. As I walked past the bathroom, I noticed a faint glimmer, just a sliver of reflected light coming from the cracked mirror, even though the bathroom light was off. The door was half open. Something in my body told me not to look, but I did. The silhouette. In the darkness of the mirror, I saw a shape, a person-shaped outline standing behind the shower curtain, not moving, not breathing visibly, just there. The room was pitch black except for the ambient light from the hallway, yet the mirror showed the silhouette clearly, more clearly than it should have. My heart started pounding. I stepped away from the bathroom door, but I never took my eyes off the reflection. I reached inside and flicked the light on. The bathroom was empty. Shower curtain closed. Everything normal. But in the mirror, the silhouette was still there. Fainter now, like a shadow burned into the glass, but still unmistakably shaped like a tall person standing behind the curtain. That's when I finally decided to remove the mirror. Behind the mirror, the next morning, I unscrewed the metal clips holding the mirror to the wall. I expected to see mildew or broken tile. I did not expect to see a hole. A perfect circle, about the size of a baseball, cut directly into the drywall behind the mirror. The edges were clean, deliberate. Someone had made this hole on purpose. I felt a cold pressure in my chest when I leaned closer and realized the hole didn't open into the wall. It opened into a room. A narrow, dim maintenance crawl space ran between the apartments. I could smell dust, old wood, insulation, and something else. Something sour. I reached inside with my phone flashlight. That's when I saw the objects. Empty water bottles, flattened and crinkled. Fast food bags. A cheap blanket bunched into the corner. A small pile of clothes. A razor. A worn-out paperback. And an energy bar wrapper that looked only a day or two old. My stomach flipped. Somebody had been living in the wall behind my bathroom, had been watching me, had been listening every time I turned on the shower, brushed my teeth, changed clothes. I stumbled backward so fast I nearly tripped. Then I called the landlord. He acted shocked, of course, claimed he had no idea, told me he'd get maintenance on it immediately. But when the maintenance guy finally showed up, he didn't seem surprised at all. He hardly even looked at the hole before shrugging and saying, "Yeah, happens sometimes in these old buildings. Homeless folks find access points." Sometimes. How often is sometimes? He sealed the hole with a sheet of particle board and left. No police, no inspection, no concern. I barely slept that night. The knocking around 1:30 a.m., I woke to the sound of something tapping. Not at the door, not on the window, inside the apartment. It was coming from the bathroom. Knock, pause, knock, knock. Not frantic, not aggressive, just testing. I froze under the covers, holding my breath. I wanted to believe I imagined it, that it was a pipe expanding or the building settling. Then I heard something worse. A long, slow exhale, directly against the thin sheet of board that now covered the hole. It was unmistakable. Moist. Deep. Human. Like someone pressing their face against the board and breathing through their nose. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the living room with the TV on low, every light in the apartment turned on, waiting for dawn. The landlord's excuse. The next morning, I stormed into the building office and demanded to know if anyone else had access to the crawl space. The landlord sighed and rubbed his forehead. Look, I've had reports of activity down there before. We try to keep it sealed, but people break in through the basement. It's probably just someone passing through. Passing through? Someone had been living behind my mirror, watching me. I moved out that weekend, packed every possession I could fit in 2 trips, and left without looking back. But the story doesn't end there. A week after I moved, I received an email from the new tenant. She somehow found my number from the old lease agreement. Her message was short, just 1 sentence. Did you hear anything strange behind the bathroom wall? Attached was a photo, a new mirror, installed over the same place mine used to hang. And running down the left side of the glass was a fresh crack, perfectly vertical, almost identical to mine. Except this time, you could see something behind it. A faint outline of a face, not a reflection, a face behind the mirror. As if someone in the wall had pressed their forehead to the back of the glass so hard, it fractured. Her final line. It happened again last night. I heard breathing. I still don't know what lived behind that mirror, or for how long it watched me, or if it followed me. But some nights, when my new bathroom is quiet and the house settles, I swear I can hear knock, pause, knock, knock, from behind the pipes, where no one should be. Story 3. The hand that closed my bedroom door. I've lived alone for the past 4 years. Not because I wanted to, but because life quietly pushed me in that direction. Eventually, the silence became comforting, predictable, safe. My apartment is small. 1 hallway, 1 bathroom, 1 bedroom. And that bedroom door, it's old, swollen from humidity, and never closes on its own. If you don't shove it hard, it stays half open, letting a thin strip of hallway light spill inside. For 4 years, that door never moved by itself. Not once. Until winter. The first night around 4 a.m., I woke up with that instinctual jolt, the kind your body makes when it hears something your mind hasn't caught yet. The room felt wrong, heavier, like the air had thickened around me. I blinked, letting my eyes adjust. The bedroom door was slowly swinging open, quietly, smoothly, as if guided by a careful, steady hand. I convinced myself it was the heater vent, or a draft. Waited, watched. The door stopped exactly halfway, perfectly still. I sighed, got up, pushed it shut firmly, and went back to bed. But in the morning, it was half open again. I blamed myself. That explanation lasted exactly 1 more night. The second night, it was 3:58 a.m. I didn't wake up gradually. I woke up violently, with the cold, paralyzing certainty that someone was watching me. My breath froze in my chest. And then, the door began to move. Not open this time. Close. A pale hand, long fingers, sharp knuckles, curled around the edge of the door from the hallway side, and gently pulled it shut. Slowly, silently. deliberately, as if trying not to wake me. I couldn't see an arm, no wrist, just the hand, holding the wood, sliding its fingers inward, and then, click. The latch sealed. That sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My mind kept repeating, "There is someone in your hallway. There is someone in your hallway." When I finally forced myself to sit up, my hands were shaking so hard I almost knocked over the lamp. The door was closed, tightly, perfectly. No draft in the world could have done that. I grabbed a kitchen knife, pulled the door open, and flicked on every light in the apartment. Hallway, empty. Bathroom, still. Shower curtain, unmoving. Front door, locked. Chain in place. Windows, latched. Everything looked normal, except for the bathroom mirror. There was a fresh smear on it. A long, foggy streak, like a finger had slid through condensation. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The noises over the next week. Things escalated. At night, I heard soft taps on the bedroom door. Not knocks, more like fingertips brushing the wood. Sometimes a slow, dragging sound, as if someone were sliding their hand down the outside of the door. Once, I woke up sure someone whispered my name. But when I opened my eyes, the apartment was dead silent. I bought a doorstop and wedged it under the bedroom door. The next morning, the doorstop was 2 feet away. I told myself I kicked it. I didn't believe it. But the lie helped me function. The bathroom clue. A week later, something else changed. My toothbrush was angled differently. My shaving cream was turned backward. Small things, wrong things. But then I stepped out of the shower and froze. A word was written across the fogged mirror. Stay. The letters were shaky, long, uneven, as if written by someone who hadn't done it in a long time, or someone writing quickly. My legs nearly gave out. I backed into the hallway and called 911. The police. 2 officers searched the apartment. No forced entry, no open windows, nothing disturbed. One asked if I might have written the word myself. The other suggested carbon monoxide. Neither explanation fit. None of this felt like hallucinations. They eventually left with polite reassurances. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch facing the hallway with every light on. At exactly 4 a.m., the bedroom door shifted. Just a tiny movement, a small test, as if someone were checking whether it still closed properly. I didn't enter the bedroom again until sunrise. What they missed the next day, desperation won. I bought a cheap USB borescope camera, the flexible kind plumbers use, and began threading it into every gap I could find. Behind furniture, under the sink, along the baseboards. Most walls were empty, until I slid the camera into the narrow space behind the bathroom cabinet. My stomach twisted. There were long, deliberate scratch marks on the inside of the wall. Not claws, not tools, fingernails, as if someone had been dragging their fingers there for months, widening a crack, searching for an opening, trying to get through. I yanked the camera out so fast, I nearly snapped it. Packed a bag, left the apartment without turning off the lights. I didn't go back. But it didn't end there. 2 weeks later, after I'd moved across town, the property manager called. They had begun renovating the unit, removing old drywall, tearing out cabinets. Behind the wall next to my bedroom door, they found a narrow vertical crawl space. Inside it were a thin mattress, discarded clothes, empty snack wrappers, a small flashlight, and dozens of scratch marks. Right at the height of the bedroom door handle, as if someone had been standing behind the wall, reaching out, closing the door, night after night. The police were notified, but whoever lived inside the walls was gone. They left only one fresh message scratched into the wood. Soon. The real end now. Every night around 4 a.m., even in my new apartment, I still wake up. Not because of a noise, not because of a dream, but because, in the quiet of the hallway, I swear I hear the slow, soft drag of a hand sliding across a wooden door, testing, checking, remembering, as if it's trying to find me again.